What's up, everybody? Welcome to a Friday edition of Daily Betslip. September 16th, we are coming off our first official Amazon Thursday Night Football game. Not really going to focus on that, though, because we have a college football game tonight. Friday Night Lights, Florida State versus Louisville. That's our game of the night. We have a bunch of college football winners for you. We're going to predict the NFL overreaction from week 2. We're going to look ahead to Monday's headlines by talking about it on Friday. I'm Reed Wallach. You can follow me on Twitter at Reed Wallach. That's Donnavan Smoot. You can follow him at DSmoot3D. Donovan, happy Friday. What's up, man?
What's going on, man? Yeah, bro. We're talking about the Chargers and Chiefs last night, and I mean, I think both of us are in agreement. Like, the Chargers outplayed the Chiefs last night, but they're just the Chargers, so like they found a way to lose, and so it's gonna be very interesting to see like how Los Angeles kind of navigates the rest of the season afterwards, right?
Yeah, I think really the big takeaways I thought were obviously the Justin Herbert injury. Really don't know yet how that's going to pan out. I think he'll be okay, but we don't know. So I guess some uncertainty there. Also, Brandon Staley's decision-making. I thought I was always team, you're going for it. That's your thing. That's cool. At least you're consistent. Went completely against his script last night and ended up, I think, costing him plenty of opportunities to really take advantage of the Chiefs. So Brandon Staley's decision-making, and then also, can the Chargers get over the hump, or is there just like a mental block on them winning football games as they should? And, I thought they outplayed them, like you just said. They outgained them by, I think, 100 yards last night and still came up short. But, that's the Chargers for you. And maybe that will always be the, mental block on them. Can we, even last night, that onside kick, that ball was sitting there for a little bit, like wide open. Like, can this become a game all of a sudden? And then, Chiefs recovered. And, that's the beauty of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. They're going to at least give you a chance to win every time, and they typically avoid the mistakes that cost them the game. But that was some quick Thursday night football talk. Let's go, before we get into our game of the night, our best bet, we're going to move to our Twitter submissions. We got a lot of good insight this game, Friday's polls. We're going to look at that. We're also going to talk game of the night later, Florida State, Louisville. Make sure you're voting on the poll below right here. Make sure you're commenting all your favorite bets. We'll get to them. But our first one, we're looking at Sunday here. I think friend of the program, Yo-Yo Ma's cousin, Lil Nepatisse, checked in. He's taking the Steelers +2 against the fraud Patriots. I think that's supposed to be the Patriots, but Steelers catching to a lot going on here. Mac Jones, I just saw before we went live. He's coming off the injury report for his back issue and his stomach illness, so it seems like Mac Jones is going to play. TJ Watt is, of course, out for this one. I kind of think the Patriots get off the schneid here and they improve to 1-1 after the Steelers. Yeah, they forced a lot of turnovers and they got the win against the Bengals. I wasn't super sold on them. I kind of lean towards New England. I'm going against Lil Nepatisse here, but Donovan, any thoughts?
I'm actually going with this pick. I think the Steelers start 2-0.
Okay.
I think I was kind of high on I guess higher than most is the right term on Mr. Trubisky coming into this season. And while Joe Burrow didn't play well last week, neither did Trubisky. And I guess you could say like, well, Burrow's obviously like the better player, and this might just be Trubisky. But Trubisky only completed 55% of his passes, but for his career, he's completed about 63. So I'm expecting him to be just a little bit better. He threw the ball nearly 40 times in the game. If they give him those opportunities, I think that the Steelers offense is going to be good. And we saw what the Patriots offense looked like in the first half against Miami. There's a lot of questions. They really don't have any playmakers on the outside. Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris are kind of like their only consistent sources of offense. So I think that Pittsburgh's playmakers end up, making plays, and they're the difference in the game.
I'm just a little concerned about this TJ Watt injury because he was playing so well. I mean, his impact, he's one of the few defensive players that I think truly impacts the spread. Like it is the difference between winning and losing. And I think people are going to look at this line and be like, oh my God, how are the Steelers +2? I think that the market kind of says just that. It's not one of my favorite looks on the board. It's just, to me, I'm looking at the Patriots. But before we get back to NFL, we're going across the pond real quick for a Saturday game, a soccer game. Trent Krim, not to be mixed up with Trent Krim of the Independent. He's going with Brentford +0.5 at home against Arsenal. Oh, this is Sunday morning. I apologize. But Brentford catching half a goal at home against Arsenal. Donovan, any thoughts here on some EPL action?
Yeah, I'm actually not. CPL. I'm actually not loving this pick. I think
Okay.
Brentford, like they had, last week's games got canceled after the passing of the Queen, and so Brentford's last game was 2 weeks ago. At this point, they scored 5 goals against Leeds. Um, I don't think that explosiveness. They've had two really explosive games this year. They scored 4 against Man United in the second week, I believe,
Mhm.
and those 4 goals were in the first half, and that was when Man United still looked a mess. And then they beat Leeds 5-2. Arsenal's coming off of a loss, but they've won every other match in EPL play. I think that they've had 2 weeks to kind of reset and get right back to where they're going. And Arsenal looks like they can compete with Man City for the title this year. So I think Arsenal gets this one, probably 2-1 would be my score prediction, but I don't think Brentford is going to be able to keep this at a draw.
So Donovan and Trent Krim going at it with going head to head here with a Twitter user. We're gonna come back now. We're doing more NFL talk here. We got Dennis Celery going with Arizona catching 5.5 against Vegas this weekend, and obviously the Cardinals. I think one of the strangest, like right leading up to week one cases, because they're banged up with a bunch of injuries. And during game week last week, the Chiefs take a bunch of money against the Cardinals. They were sitting like -3 the entire summer. Then they close -6 against the Cardinals. They absolutely boat race them, absolutely destroy them. And now we're seeing a similar, obviously they're on the road now, but catching 5.5 against the Raiders team that played tough against the Chargers. I don't know if we know the bottom on the Cardinals yet, but I'm also a little nervous to take the Raiders to win with margin, because there's still some question on the offensive line. Can the Cardinals get a little bit more healthy? This is, I think, a step down in class, going from the Chiefs to the Raiders. But there's something up with the Cardinals that I'm not interested in finding out just yet. Like, I'm not trying to wager my money on this Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury marriage just yet, because there's something up with this team. And I think they're trending towards kind of a bottoming out, even after all the extensions they got this offseason.
Yeah, I think, listen, I like the track that you're on in terms of like long term. What do the Cardinals look like? If we're just talking about week 2, I love this play. I really think that this is kind of one of like the trap lines of this week, because do we trust the Raiders? Like
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if I do.
That's the real question, and I don't particularly trust Las Vegas to go do this. Last year there was one game where they were at least a 5.5 point favorite. That was against Chicago, and they ended up losing. Now that came off of the entire John Gruden scandal and his firing and everything. So there were a lot of like outside circumstances, but they're not in this position a lot because they're the Raiders, because we just don't really know. So, and we've seen Las Vegas have spurts where they've played really, really well, and they haven't been this much of a favorite. I think that we're kind of underrating Arizona right now. Kyler's still going to be good. Let's see if Hollywood Brown can have a solid game. And listen, apparently Greg Dortch is like he's a star now. So
Yeah, he was good in college.
Yes,
That's
they have
CFB
a
legend.
few weapons. They have a few weapons to throw at Las Vegas. So I'll take the Cardinals plus 5.5.
Yeah. All right. I don't think I'm going to be involved in this one, but it's hard to, lay those points with the Raiders. I think that there are some questions that they need to answer as well, while the Cardinals also have to. So to me, that's a dog or pass spot. But great stuff from our Twitter followers there. We're going to get to our own best bets now. And listen, if you have any more questions about the weekend slate, just drop them in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe. We will get to them as the show goes on. But Donnavan, I'm going to start with you for your best bets. So we got one WNBA play, and then we're going through 6 college football games. I'm going to do what I did the last 2 weeks, kind of give you one. So you are sitting on your couch and you have bets for the entire viewing window. So Donovan, first, let's go WNBA. WNBA finals. Connecticut kept their season alive last night. Are they keeping it again this weekend?
No, I think that the Aces win the championship. And it's
down the Nets.
It's very, very fitting that just somehow every time you and I are on and there's some WNBA action, the Aces are involved.
It's been destiny. This is how it has to end this way.
Exactly. The Aces, they dominated game 1, or they won that game fairly convincingly. I think that the final score was a little bit closer than what the actual game was. They went on a run at the end of the fourth quarter to kind of like extend it. They had 2 bad turnovers in like the last minute and a half to cut it from like an 8-point game to a 3-point game. Game 2, they looked a lot better. They handled the Sun very easily. And so game 3 was kind of, I won't say that like I expected it to be a 29-point blowout, but that's the game where you say like, okay, you're down 2-0, you go back home. That's the back home desperation game from the Sun. So I expected them to get that game. Everything is equal. Everybody's kind of leveled down again, and Las Vegas, they're just a better team. So I think at minus a point and a half, they'll win this game by more than a possession, especially even if it's close down the stretch. The Sun are going to get into the foul game to try to save their season, and Vegas is going to knock them down. So being able to take them at slight plus money to win this game is great. So I'll take Las Vegas on the spread in this one.
All right, love it. This has been like my summer destiny here. This is the only way I could actually officially start football season, that it ends with an Aces bet on Daily Betslip. But we're going to talk now a little bit more my bread and butter. So Donnavan, I know we spoke some Texas, Alabama last week on the show. You're sticking in the Big 12 and in the state of Texas with your 2 plays. So give me 2 college football bets you're eyeing for the week 3 slate.
Yeah, so the first one I'll go Houston minus 9.5 against Kansas. Houston's they put up 30 points in both of their games, even though that they're 1-1. But I feel like their offense still has another level to get to in terms of just like fluidity and consistency, and they can look a lot better than what they've looked like in these first 2 games. But I think that the connection between Tune and Dale is really the only connection that they need. It's worked extremely well up until this point, and so I think that with them still going to another level, they're winning the turnover battle this year. And then you have Kansas on the other side, who, listen, they've played well, right? They've put up 50 in both of their first 2 games. I'm just not buying it. I look at them and they're still just Kansas, and so they're gonna have to go out and prove it against Houston for me to actually start to buy into what they're cooking up this year. So I'll take Houston on the spread there.
Yeah, no. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but to me, this Kansas, they got a little. I don't want to say lucky last week because they did beat West Virginia, but that was like a high-scoring, crazy game. I think Houston kind of gets right here. So to me, I'm leaning the Houston side as well. Have not bet it yet, but I kind of lead. It's drifting down the spread, which I think is interesting. People are buying into the Jayhawks, so a lot of typically college basketball schools are playing really well this season. You have like your Syracuse, Duke, Kansas. So we'll see if Kansas can keep it up. Yeah. But what's your other play?
So my other play, I'm going to Oklahoma, and I think that Oklahoma covers against Nebraska. Nebraska is not good. They've played 2 FBS schools this year. They've given up 31 points and 45 points, and they just fired Scott Frost off. Obviously, when you have a team with that kind of turmoil, that porous of a defense going up against Oklahoma and their offense, that's like, even if you get into a shootout, I'm taking Oklahoma over Nebraska in that sense. And Oklahoma's defense, Oklahoma hasn't necessarily played like the toughest schedule. They haven't had like a true test yet. But again, I'm expecting points. And so even if Nebraska comes out and, they rally around themselves and they say like, oh, like he shouldn't have been fired, this and that, Oklahoma's the better team. I trust their offense more than, the magic rah-rah that Nebraska might put up.
Yeah, totally agree. I mentioned on the early read on Tuesday, I bet Dylan Gabriel this week to win the Heisman. I think the Heisman campaign starts now. His numbers, the Oklahoma quarterback, they're the same as C.J. Stroud, Caleb Williams, even Bryce Young. You want to compare these guys. Dylan Gabriel needs to be in the mix here. And you're looking at the schedule coming up for him. He plays Nebraska on a nationally televised game. He goes to Kansas State. He plays TCU. And then it's the Red River game against your Texas Longhorns. Probably no Quinn Ewers in that game. All of a sudden, if Oklahoma gets out to 6-7-0, even with a loss, but if Dylan Gabriel's putting up points against some iffy defenses, some high-scoring games, the numbers are going to be there for a very accurate, explosive offense. I think right now, I saw Dylan Gabriel trading at around 50-1 this week, still in the 31 range. The time is now. I think his odds are only going in one direction. That's down. I think Oklahoma destroys Nebraska this week. I think you could see Gabriel, 5 touchdown passes, 350 yards. Those counting stats start accumulating a little bit. And it's like, oh, wait, Dylan Gabriel, he's really good. He's on a high-powered team that might make the playoff. He should be in the Heisman race. All of a sudden, his price at 12-1, 8-1, and so on. So I'm with you here on Oklahoma. I think that the dead cat bounce, we just fired our head coach with Scott Frost, is a little overrated here. I think Oklahoma kind of comes out and makes a statement. So give me the Sooners with you. I like a minus 10.5. So yeah, those are Donovan's best bets. I'm going to give you 4 right here that are going to get you through the entire day. So we have a noon game, a 3:30 game, a 7:30 game, and a 10:30 game. We'll start. We're all good things. Start Western New York for some football. Syracuse, minus 1.5 against Purdue. I loved what Syracuse offense has looked like the first 2 weeks. Schrader looks great. Sean Tucker looks great at running back. And it's all because they brought in the Virginia offensive coordinator, Robert Anae. He's really revamped this offense. Virginia was a top 5 offense last year, and it's kind of trickling over now to Syracuse. And look at what Virginia's offense has been. They've fallen off a cliff. They only scored 3 points against Illinois last week. So I think Syracuse at home, they're being undervalued. I had this game -2. I still see some value. I think they win the game outright, -1.5. Next, Vanderbilt. Typically, they're not going to win. They're not going to win many more games once SEC play starts. But they're playing a MAC team on the road in Northern Illinois, and I can't believe they're underdogs. Vanderbilt has looked good against poor competition this year. Northern Illinois might be a little bit better than Elon and Hawaii, but underdog, you got to take them here. So I like Vanderbilt. I trust the athletes on the outside and in the trenches to outlast Northern Illinois in MAC competition. They hardly beat Eastern Illinois in week 1. They lost to Tulsa on the road in week 2 in a crazy game. I think Vandy gets the job done. Tell your bookie to keep the points. We're going on the money line. Next, Washington. This is in the 7:30 slate. I think this is a big statement game and kind of a coming out party for the Huskies. They've looked good with Michael Penix, the transfer quarterback from Indiana. He's back with his offensive coordinator, Kalen DeBoer, and they've looked great. They put up 40+ in both games against lower competition. This is a Michigan State team. I don't know if they're going to have their starting wide receiver in Jalen Reed. I think this is a statement game for Washington. I think the line says it all. You know, I saw on ESPN, not to rag on ESPN, but they're like, I think Michigan State's on upset alert because they're like ranked 11th or whatever, and Washington's unranked. I'm just like, that's not really an upset because they're actually underdogs because Washington's actually pretty good. So I think the line says it all. I think Washington makes a statement, and I think we're talking on Monday. Is Washington live for the Pac-12 championship this year in the first year of the Kalen DeBoer era? So that's the 7:30 game. And last but not least, my favorite bet on the board. Share this one on the early read. I'm sharing it again because you have to get in on Fresno State. +12 on the money line. Take it every which way you want. I like them to upset USC in the Rose Bowl on Saturday night. Jake Haener and the Bulldogs last year went to UCLA and upset the Bruins. Crazy game, back and forth, high scoring. I think something similar setting up here. USC's being incredibly overrated in the market. Forced 4 Stanford turnovers last week, 2 of which came inside the 10, and they still only won by 13 points. I think USC's offense, they could score against anyone, but their defense can't stop a nosebleed. Give me Fresno State to pull the upset. I think that they they outplayed Oregon State last week, and they probably should have won that game. They lost a crazy game. I think they get their Pac-12 win this Saturday late in the Rose Bowl. So yeah, there are all our best bets. That was just spoke a lot there. Let's bring up that recap.
Great work, though. Great work, though. Ran through them. Great job.
Let's give up that recap graphic to make sure everyone gets all those bets in, though. So Donovan, one WNBA play. He thinks the WNBA season ends over the weekend. He's taking the Aces -1.5 at +102. He's also on Oklahoma -10.5 at Nebraska and Houston covering 9.5 against Kansas. And then yours truly going from noon to probably 2 in the morning. I won't be sleeping. It starts with Syracuse -1.5 against Purdue. Vandy +115 against Northern Illinois. Washington -3 against Michigan State. And then Fresno State +12, +360. They get the upset of USC to cap off a profitable Saturday. And if you want any more college football picks, make sure you go check out the early read right on this lovely YouTube channel. That's live every Tuesday, hosted by yours truly. We have a bunch more week 3 picks for you on the Saturday slate. So no more college football until we get to our game of the night. So we're going to do a little bit of NFL here on our show. We're going to talk. We did this last week, Donovan, and I thought it was just like a good kind of like what kind of crazy stuff could happen this week. And I think we kind of did all right. I guess we'll quickly recap what we said. But this week, you know, we see a lot of big favorites on the board. see a lot of teams that are kind of in need of a win quickly. You're talking about the Packers who lost. Donnavan, let's, I guess, really quickly hit on what you said last week was your bold prediction, if that came true, and then we'll do your bold prediction for this week.
My bold prediction last week did not come true. I thought that I should have known this as an Eagles fan. I should have been expecting the Cowboys to disappoint me whenever I needed them to. I thought that the Cowboys were going to win in week 1 against the Bucs, and they looked terrible, and Dak got hurt, and now they have no hope, and they are a touchdown underdog to the Bengals, and they're probably going to lose 3 straight games to start the season. So
yeah,
I couldn't have been more wrong about the Dallas Cowboys. So as an Eagles fan, listen, I love it. As somebody who just likes to be right, I hate it.
So what do you got in store for this week? Because I think your take this week is much spicier, I think, than yours was last week.
Yeah. So at first, I wrote this up at BetSided. We have our, it's a trap series where we talk about the lines that we think are traps. And I thought that the Packers -9.5 against the Bears was a trap. And the more I think about it, I think the Packers end up losing this game. And
that's crazy. That's so
I think they lose this game to the Bears, and the Packers will be at the bottom of the NFC North. You look at this entire roster, and they have 2 sources of offense. They have A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. And while they are both fantastic running backs, Aaron Rodgers has nobody to throw to, right? He completed 95 yards to wide receivers last week. Justin Jefferson had 184 by himself. Devontae Adams by himself still outgained the rest of the Packers wide receivers. So I don't know where Rodgers throws to. Adam Schefter just tweeted out that Allen Lazard and David Bakhtiari are not questionable for this game. They were out whenever I made this prediction.
So upgrade. They were upgraded.
Yeah, they were upgraded. So there's a chance that they might play. I think if Bakhtiari's presence is obviously more important than Allen Lazard's presence. So I think that if he's there, this may be a bit of a stretch. But I mean, listen, Justin Fields, that I'm throwing out everything that I saw in week 1 from the Bears Niners, because that game was terrible. Those conditions were awful, and you can't make a proper judgment, good or bad, on either side. So I do think that what I see from the Packers, it just looks like despair on their side. So I think that they lose this game, and they're probably going to be they're my second big upset pick of week 2, because I have the Jets beating the Browns.
I'm with you on a Gang Green maybe being live for an upset against the Browns. Not with you on the Bears beat the Packers. I can't get there. Aaron Rodgers, he owns Chicago a little too much. I think that there's kind of some normalcy, things evening out after the Bears got that, I think we could agree, fluky win over San Francisco. So last week, I was talking about the Jags and how they might be live to win the AFC South. I was wrong on the Jags part, but I think I did kind of get at least the big picture.
They look better.
The AFC South might be a little bit more open with the Colts laying an egg to the Texans. Mm-hmm. That game ends up being a tie, probably for the better in terms of my idea that I think the Jags are live for the division. And then also the Titans losing to my New York Football Giants. Jags, of course, get a loss. And I see Dom Play coming in the comments. He's asking about his pick on Florida State. We're going to get to that in a few minutes right after we get through this segment. So Dom Play, hang around. We will talk about the side and total on Florida State, Louisville, our game of the night. But so I went a little bit bolder, I think, than you last week. This week, I'm going a little, I think, more conservative than you. So we're kind of flip-flopping here. I think the Ravens are going to look like maybe be part of that conversation with the Bills and the Chiefs at the top of the AFC after this weekend. I see a lot of love going Miami's way after they beat the Patriots. But I look at that game. I look at the box score. The Patriots kind of were neck and neck. I believe it was Dolphins 5.2 yards per play, Patriots 5 yards per play. Kind of a break-even game there. I know there was the fumble recovery, pick, scoop and score for the Dolphins. That really helped them as well with, Jalen Waddle busting off a touchdown. I hold this Ravens team in high regard. You know that they're my Super Bowl pick. I think that, they're being a little undervalued because they just kind of walked through that through that Jets game. It was rainy on the turf. They're playing a lowly Jets team with Joe Flacco, who's throwing 60 times a game. Just they didn't need to give a full effort to really make that an easy victory. They weren't really challenged. So I think they actually come out in their home opener and make a statement and beat up on a Dolphins team. I like the Ravens this week. And I think that's the box score where we go, whoa, Baltimore. Like maybe they need to be upgraded. They need to be in that conversation because we were just talking about at the beginning of the episode. We're not as high on the Chiefs maybe as the market is. And, I think we could agree that the Bills are right there, probably the top, but maybe that there's some room for another team to join in the conversation. I think that team is going to be the Ravens.
Yeah, I think, listen, I like the Ravens this week as well. I will say, I think Tyreek has a fairly big impact on this game. It was very, very clear that he's wide receiver 1 and that Jalen Waddle is wide receiver 2. Tyreek had 12 targets, 8 catches for 94 yards, didn't score. I think he scores this week, so anytime touchdown, put in Tyreek. Mm-hmm. But I look at the game, with the Dolphins and the Patriots. There were 2 passes that Tua had that should have been interceptions that he got away with, and it's very. I think the Dolphins.
I'm not sold on Tua.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit higher on him than a couple other people. I think because he's like game manager plus. Like I think he's right above that. But there were opportunities for the Patriots to get back into that game with turnovers, and they didn't. If Tua does that again this week, I think the Ravens are going to be able to be opportunistic, and they're going to be able to make those plays where the Patriots didn't and kind of take control. So I'm with you on the Ravens looking good this week and getting the win.
Yeah. So there's our pair of NFL Week 2 bowl predictions, trying to maybe forecast some bigger outcomes. I mean, Donovan's I think that would be the absolute big news story leading on Monday if the Packers drop their home opener to the Chicago Bears, who Aaron Rodgers just owns on Sunday nights. Mine, maybe a little bit more nuance after last week. Mine was the heater. But let's transition back to college football. We're ping-ponging around pro and college this week. So we're going to talk game of the night. Updated lines. I got Florida State laying a juice 2.5, total 57. Donovan, I guess I'll set the table for you, and then you'll give your pick on the side. I got to look at the total. Dom play. I hope you hung around because we're going to get into some side and total talk. Daniel Scott chimes in. He's on FSU money line. So Chad's thinking FSU. We'll give out our picks in just a few minutes. But Florida State hasn't played since that Labor Day kind of chaotic game against LSU that went right down to the wire. FSU wins on a blocked kick in a game that I think the Noles looked like the far superior team. So FSU really, now they get that early bye because they played on week 0. So they had an extra time to prepare for this. Louisville, tale of 2 games for them. They laid an egg against Syracuse, who I just said I think is a pretty good football team. They then go on the road to the Bounce House and play a pretty good group of 5 team in UCF. Slow start. They end up picking it up in the second half. They end up getting the win. Malik Cunningham runs wild. So now they come home for their second ACC game. Kind of a must win if they really want to make some noise in this conference that I think is a little bit more wide open. They're a home underdog against an FSU team that hasn't been in this spot as a road favorite very often lately as they start trying to build this program back up. 2 very dynamic quarterbacks. Donovan, I'll go to you here. You like the side. Let's hear it. Make the case.
Yeah, I think everybody in the chat is wrong because I'm going with Louisville money line on this one. Louisville, right? And they were featured in our game of the night last time, and they ended up with the upset, like you said, against UCF. I think that they still have another level to go offensively, and you look at this Cardinals team. They went into Tallahassee last year, beat FSU. The defense really showed up last week, holding UCF to 14. So that side of the ball is starting to come around. Florida State, yeah, they look better against LSU, but LSU's special teams was absolutely disgusting. And so you have to kind of throw that caveat in there to where if Louisville can just have a little bit of protection on field goals and punts and just be competent in their special teams, Florida State's not going to be able to get the field position. They're not going to be able to get the easy points that they were able to get against LSU. So I think Louisville is a much more together team right now than LSU was in week 0. And I think that they get the upset and that they win this game.
Yeah, I do not have an opinion on the side. For what it's worth, I make Florida State around a 3.5 point favorite. I'm not interested in trusting this team going on the road and beating a Louisville team. Also, I'm not sure which game is more indicative of how Louisville is going to go this year. Is it they're going to lay an egg to a Syracuse team, or are they going to be resilient and win on the road at UCF? This is their home opener. Can they get the crowd going? Can, that win against UCF kind of ignite this team? I mean, Malik Cunningham is one of the most exciting players in college football, but he's a bit up and down. So which Malik Cunningham are we going to see? I just think there's a little too many questions on the side for me to play it. So no play for me there. I am interested in the total though, and I could see why people bet this total up. It opened 54.5. It's not a 57. I'm going to play against it though. If anything, I might wait till right before game time, see if I can get a key number of 58. But I think people are banking on, Cunningham and Jordan Travis both could use their legs. They're going to rip off chunk plays and stuff like that. I just am not sure that we're going to see so many points in this game because Louisville just played UCF, another fast-paced, up-tempo, explosive offense, and the final score was in the 30s. That's what this total landed. Similar total game. Both teams are playing very slow, 98th and 99th in plays per minute. So you're talking bottom third of the entire country. I think that Louisville's offensive line has questions, and we saw FSU, their defensive line gave LSU hell. And I know that LSU's offensive line has a ton of questions. That was their first game together, but that's still an SEC offensive line that FSU's defensive line gave trouble. So I think we're going to see both defensive line win and kind of keep both teams behind the sticks. I kind of like the under here. I think we're going to see this more, slower paced, a lot of punts. I mean, like you said, Donnavan, Louisville won in Tallahassee last year, 31-23. Again, 54. I think you could see something similar where, 27-20, 27-24. Like, I think you're going to see a close, low-scoring game. So my lean is toward the under. And, Don play. I kind of like the FSU side, not enough to play. Like I just said, I'm on the under. Donnavan is on the Louisville money line. So I don't think you made a bad pick. I think Donnavan thinks you made a bad pick. So I don't know if that helps you with your bet. But you are getting some good closing line value as Florida State is sitting around a juiced -2.5, -3 favorite. So I don't think you necessarily made a bad pick, but we'll see if it wins for you on a Friday night Louisville, Florida State ACC game. So we have our poll bet, which Don play. I guess you got the community with you because the poll voted on Florida State -3.5 even. So I'm saying -2.5, juice -3. We're getting FSU -3.5. The community thinks they're winning with margin tonight. So there's our community pick, FSU -3.5. They think the Noles go to Louisville and get a win. But Donnavan, he's on the Louisville money line side. I'm on the under 57, so I'm going to be miserable on my Friday night. But there's all our picks. And, we have our NFL show live every Sunday with Ian McMillan and Matt Berteram. You check that out. Courtney Bryan checks in. She says FSU wins by a field goal, right in line with the odds makers. Can't hate you there, Courtney. But like I just said, NFL show Sundays live with Matt Berteram and Ian McMillan. You can check out my college football show live every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, previewing for the next slate. And if you want to go back and look at our picks for this week, you go see that. It is live on our YouTube page. And while you're on this page, make sure you like and subscribe below. We're pumping out all this daily bet slip, college football, NFL content for you. So we appreciate the subscriptions. And big shout out to Joanne Woodcock. She controls everything behind the scenes. Our ace video producer, director, coach. She does everything. So big shout out to her. And I hope everybody has a profitable weekend. Donnavan, I'll talk to you soon.
See you, man.